For this screencast, we are going to be going through how to calculate a 1040 2019. Specifically, I'm going to be going through the assignment calculate completing a 1040 for the first character, which is Edgar Flores. So a couple things you need to make sure you have. One of them is making sure that we have Edgar's W-2 pulled up. And then also making sure that we have a 2019 1040, which is here. Okay. So first of all, we need to make sure we understand information about Edgar. He's 16. He lives with his parents. And then we need to start knowing what his income is. But as we fill out the form, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to say that he's single because he's not married. We're going to put his first name here, his last name. We're not going to worry about any other personal information that is present there for him. We're going to go down to where it talks about standard deduction. We are going to say that someone does claim Edgar as a dependent. He's 16-year-old, he lives with his parents, so his parents are probably going to be claiming him as a dependent. Continuing on, we're going to get into the actual worksheet portion of the 1040, starting with number 1, which is wages, salaries, tips, etc., attached form W-2. That number that goes there, we are going to find on Edgar's W-2. And on his W-2, it said that he made $5,505. So we're going to put that number here. All right, now that's correct. If we go back to that assignment then, looking at the next questions, 2A, 3A, etc., there's a little cheat sheet there on the assignment. If we scroll down, it tells us that we're following the directions on every line in the 1040, but for certain lines, you may need additional information. You're going to consult this table here. So right here it says for lines 2A through 7A, assume 0 for each value. So on the 1040, we're going to put 0 for each of these boxes here. All right. 7B says to add lines 1, 2B, 3B, 4B, 4D, 5B, 6, and 7A. This is your total income. Our total income remains the same because we do not have any additional income, so that's $5,505. For 8A, it says adjustments to income from Schedule 1, line 22. We have no adjustments, so we're going to put a 0 there. And if you look on our cheat sheet, it also says line 8A, no adjustments to income. Now, before I switch over to the 1040, it says on line 9, we're going to determine if the individual is or is not a dependent. We all determined that he's a dependent. So we have to see then which of these situations applies to him. The second bullet point says if you are a dependent and line 7B is greater than 12,200, enter 12,200. If third bullet says if you are a dependent and line 7B is less than 12,200, add 350 to line 7B and enter the total here. So going back to the 1040, we see that line 7B is less than 12,200. So we are going to take what's considered the standard deduction for someone who is married is 12,000 that does not apply to us only because he is a dependent. So we're actually going to add 350 to 5,505 for line 9. That would give us 5,800 and that would give us $5,855. For 10, we have no qualified business deductions. If we look on our cheat sheet, it says that assume no qualified business income deduction. So there we're going to put a 0. For 11A, it says add lines 9 and 10, so that brings us with the same number, 5,855 here. 11B, it says taxable income. You should subtract line 11A from line 8B. If 0 or less, enter 0. And for our purposes, when we're doing that math, if we know that, 8B should be 5,505. Back to number 11, though. Subtracting line 7A from line 8B would give us a negative number. 5,505 minus 5,855 would be a negative number. So since that is less than 0, we're going to enter a 0 here. Basically, from this part of the worksheet, what we have found is that Edgar did not make enough money in 2019 that he is going to be expected to have to pay any taxes. Okay? So now we're going to go to the second page to continue on. Number 12A is looking to figure out how much tax he needs to pay. Since we already know that he does not have any taxable income, we know that this number here is 0 because our line here was 0 here. Now, in other situations, if you have a number here, then you would need to look up that number that's on 11B in the tax table. So just so you're aware, if you go back to this assignment, there's a link here to the tax table. You would look up that number that's on that line, which is line, once again, 11B, whatever you have here for 11B, on the tax table here. Okay? And then whatever number you find, once you find that number between whatever range it's given, you're going to use a single column. That number then will go on to, excuse me as I flip around, what you have for line 12A. All right, continuing on. I'm sorry, I had to pause. So our line for 12A is 0. For 12B, where it says as scheduled to line 3, we don't need to do anything additional there. And so 12B will continue to be 0. 13A, if we look back on our cheat sheet, we see that for 13, we assume that there's no child tax credits. So going back to 13, here, that's going to be a 0 for us. 13B then would still continue to be a 0, where it says as schedule 3, line 7, and line 13 to enter the total. We continue to have 0. 14, it says subtract line 13B from line 12B. If 0 or less, enter 0. So it's going to continue to be a 0 for us. 16, add lines 14 and 15. This is your total tax. So if we add lines, 15 is 0 as well. If we add lines 14 and 15, this is your total tax. Then we're going to end up with a 0, continue with a 0. Number 17 is going to ask us for federal income tax withheld from the form W-2 in 1099. If we go back to Edgar's W-2, we see that from box 2, he paid $336 in federal income taxes over the course of time that he worked. Okay? So we are going to put that number on number 17. Going back to our cheat sheet for 18, going back real quick, actually 17, we're assuming that there's no 1099 form, so we just have what's on the W-2, so no additional income. Number 18, assume no refundable credits. Number 18 is going to be 0. So all of this ends up being a 0 here. (18E), it says add lines 18A through A2D, so we know that's a 0 here. I'm sorry. Yep, that's it. And then for 19, where it says add line 17 and 18E, these are our total payments. So our total payments that we paid was $336. So then here comes the fun part, determining how much we're either going to get in a refund or we owe. Now keep in mind, we already know that we don't have any income that's taxable, but we paid $336 in taxes. And so more than that means that we're going to be getting some kind of money back because we know that we weren't supposed to pay taxes and we did. So if we do the math, it says if line 19 is more than line 16, so if we look, 19 is more than line 16, then you can subtract line 16 from 19. This is the amount that you overpaid. So we would end up with 336, okay? You get a refund on your tax return if you overpaid. So Edgar overpaid $336. He's going to get that money back. Okay. 21, it's A is asking amount on line 20 you want refunded to you. We want all of our money back, so that's going to be $336. Now, the nice thing about this example is that it is very reflective of someone in you all situation as high school students. More than likely, when you worked, you did not make enough money that the federal government is going to be making you pay taxes. So although legally you do not have to file your taxes unless you made $12,200 or more, but if you don't file your taxes, you're not going to get the money back that you probably didn't have to pay in taxes to begin with. Okay? So follow this as a guide when filling out your 1040. For the other examples, keep in mind that the situations may be different, such as the amount of income that's there, whether or not they have a, whether or not they are a dependent, and all those things. So make sure you make good use of this example that I went through and also just cheat sheet here. All right, that's about all. Happy taxing.